Is your HOA always this fair? Because mine slipped a 3. 17 a.m. permit notice onto my wife's windshield with a sharp paper slap under the porch glare. No knock, no violation. Just Karen's name sitting there like a quiet threat. By sunrise, they'd already blocked her hospital permit with a yellow tag, the same stunt Glenn said Karen pulls on anyone who questions that mysteriously swollen security budget. But when Emily opened last year's full audit, her audit and the permit file clicked on the projector like a cold radio snap. Every duplicated EIN lit up like red tape catching fire. Anyway, the clubhouse froze. Karen stopped talking, and by next week, the permit stayed up, while her power didn't. I didn't hear the envelope hit the porch. What I remember is the camera one sharp beep at 3:17 a.m., and my wife's voice drifting down the hallway. Mike Emily called tired and hoarse. There's something on my car. Cedar Ridge isn't a busy place at that hour. Our cul-de-sac outside Austin is usually just crickets and the hum of the porch light. Tonight, there was also a white envelope catching that light. I stepped out in a t-shirt and work jeans skin prickling in the cool air. The porch camera's red LED glowed above me, still recording. Emily stood at the bottom of the steps in her Navy scrubs badge clipped to her pocket, staring at the envelope tucked under her wiper blade. "It wasn't there when I pulled in," she said. "I swear, Mike, I would have seen it." Gravel crunched under my boots as I walked to the Honda and slid the envelope free. Cheap stock. Folded once, no stamp, no return address, just our lot number in blocky black ink. I opened it right there by the bumper. Parking permit. Review under Karen Little, HOA President. My eyes went straight to the next line. Compliance required. Below that, smaller type about suspension of parking privileges associated with this residence. I felt Emily shift beside me. "Let me see," she said. I handed it over. She held it under the porch light. Her green hospital parking permit hung from the rearview mirror, catching the edge of the glow, the little laminated square that meant she could park under cameras and security instead of 3 blocks away in the dark. "That card," she murmured, "is the only reason I feel halfway safe walking out at 7 a.m. The last line on the notice wasn't printed. It was handwritten in blue ink, slanted careful. Final warning, compliance required. Emily's thumb hovered over those words. "That's not a reminder," she said quietly. "That's a threat." At the bottom, the logo, Cedar Ridge Homeowners Association. Under it, the signature block approved by Karen Little President. I exhaled slowly. "Did we miss something?" I asked. "Some email, some meeting." "I paid the dues," Emily said. "You fixed the fence. The trash cans are behind the line. What else do they want?" The porch light hummed. Somewhere down the street, an air conditioner kicked on, then clicked off. The rest of the world stayed asleep. "Come inside," I said. "I want to see who dropped this off." We went back up the steps. Inside the house was warm from the day before, faint smell of sawdust trailing in from the garage where my tool bench lives. I grabbed my phone, opened the porch camera app, and scrubbed back through the timeline. The night rolled past in grayscale. A cat wandered across the driveway at 1:10 a.m. Headlights swept the street at 2:02. The progress bar ticked forward until a red marker popped up at 3:17. "There," Emily said. I tapped the clip. Our front walk, our driveway, Emily's Honda glinting under the porch light. A figure stepped into frame from the right, moving like they knew exactly where the camera started. Dark jacket, slacks, clipboard in one hand. No knock. No doorbell. They walked straight to the car, slid the envelope under the wiper with a practiced motion, and paused just long enough to adjust it so the print faced the driver's side. As they turned away, the porch light caught a badge clipped to the jacket. Cedar Ridge, HOA. "That's not the mailman," I said. Emily crossed her arms. "They filed it at 3:17 a.m., she said. "Who reviews parking permits in the middle of the night? Somebody who doesn't want to answer questions," I replied. I froze the frame with the badge visible. The envelope looked small against the windshield, but the words inside it didn't feel small at all. "Okay," I said. "First thing in the morning, I'm emailing the office. We're going to get an explanation on paper." Emily nodded. "Make them answer in writing," she said. No phone calls, no "we'll talk at the next meeting." On the screen, the figure walked out of frame and vanished into the dark. I saved the video and flagged it. The app gave a soft click as the file uploaded. At the small desk by the window, I opened my laptop and typed the subject line, RE, Parking Permit Review, Lot 17. I attached a screenshot of the notice and a still from the 317 clip where the badge was just clear enough to read. The email itself was short. We received this at 3:17 a.m., hand-delivered to my wife's car. We're not aware of any violation. Please provide in writing the basis for this review and the specific compliance concerns. I hit send. The whoosh sounded too loud in the quiet kitchen. Less than a minute later, the HOA's auto-reply landed in my inbox. Your message has been received. For efficiency, the Cedar Ridge HOA requests all concerns be submitted in writing. Please allow 3 to 5 business days for a response. Emily let out a dry laugh. 3 to 5 days, she said. My next shift is in 12 hours. They'll see it first thing I said. We'll go by the office after breakfast if we have to. She set the notice on the counter and pinched the bridge of her nose. I'm too tired to be mad, she said. But I'm getting there. Get some sleep, I told her. I'll keep the slip and the video. We're not tossing anything. She hesitated in the doorway. Mike, yeah. She tapped the line in a blue ink. Final warning, compliance required. This isn't a mistake, she said. She's aiming this at me. I met her eyes. Then we aim back, I said. She gave a small nod and disappeared down the hall. By the time I stepped onto the porch the next morning with a mug of coffee, the sky over Austin was pale and washed out. For a second, everything looked normal, same driveway, same car, same little green permit hanging from the mirror. Then I saw the fresh yellow sticker slapped across it. Temporary suspension, C. Karen Little. The coffee didn't feel so warm anymore. Glenn showed up before 8, long before he usually shuffled down to his mailbox. I heard his boots on the driveway and opened the side door into the garage. He stood under the buzzing fluorescent strip cap in one hand, a folded notice in the other. Morning, Glenn, I said. You're early. Yeah, he answered. So's this. He lifted the paper. His eyes were fixed on the yellow slip I'd pinned to the pegboard Emily's parking permit review from 3:17 a.m. I took his notice and unfolded it. Cedar Ridge, HOA, parking permit, review compliance required. Same logo. Same wording, same threat, but there was a line stamped across the top in red. Second notice, failure to respond. When did they leave this, I asked. Yesterday, he said. No knock, just sitting on my windshield when I went for the paper. You ever see them use the permit like this before I asked? Glenn shook his head. Not until this year, he said. Karen's had the board send letters about trash cans, lawn height, whatever bothers her. Parking. That's new. He lowered his voice. You heard about Mrs. Duffy on Ridgeway? I shook my head. She asked where the extra security fee went, he said. Couple days later, she finds one of these on her grandson's car, then another. Third one said, final warning, in red. She stopped asking. You think this is about money? I said, not cars. He gave a small, humorless smile. Mike Karen's figured out people will ignore a budget sheet. They don't ignore a sticker on their windshield. The kitchen door creaked open. Emily stepped into the garage in a t-shirt and sweatpants, mug of coffee in her hand. Hey, Glenn, she said. Let me guess, parking review. Looks that way, he said, holding up the notice. Emily set her mug on the workbench and picked up her phone. Before we talk about his, she said we should talk about ours. She swiped and handed me the screen. Subject, final warning permit will be revoked on Wednesday. The email body was short. Failure to comply. Immediate revocation. Effective Wednesday. Satisfied with your response. Signed, Karen. Little. President. 3 days, Emily said. They're giving us 3 days to satisfy them. Glenn whistled softly. That's quicker than most folks get, he said. Duffy had weeks. Karen's in a hurry with us, Emily replied. Glenn frowned. Why? Emily's eyes went to the small desk by the garage window where her laptop sat open. The Cedar Ridge logo glowed on the screen. Because I asked a question she doesn't want to answer, she said, "Remember that security and maintenance increased 2 quarters ago?" "We all remember," Glenn said. She waved a chart and called it Keeping the Neighborhood Safe. "I'm the one who audited it," Emily said quietly. "Cedar Ridge hired my firm. I signed the preliminary review." She doesn't know that the Emily who raised her hand in the meeting is the same Emily who looked at the numbers. Glenn blinked. "You're kidding." She shook her head and sat at the desk. A PDF filled the screen. "Current year," she said. "Security and maintenance, $68,000. She clicked to another tab. "Last year security, $28. Same vendor I asked. Same vendor she said. Same number of patrol hours. $40,000 more on the budget." Glenn leaned in, squinting at the totals. "40 grand, he muttered. "On paper," Emily said. "I flagged it. I figured I'd get backup documentation or an explanation. Instead, I said we got a letter at 3:17 in the morning. And an email that says my permit goes dark on Wednesday," she added. We stood behind her, staring at the numbers. "You think she connected you to the audit?" Glenn asked. "I don't know what she knows," Emily said. "But I know the timing. People who ask about the budget get parking letters." Glenn rubbed his thumb along the crease of his notice. "Duffy," he said. "That guy on Willow Court who wanted to see the invoices. Same pattern. Now, us," I said. Glenn looked from the screen to Emily. "Be careful," he said quietly. "Karen doesn't like people touching her numbers." Emily took a breath. "I'm not touching them," she said. "I'm just going to make sure somebody else does." Her phone buzzed on the bench. Another email slid into view from the HOA account. Same subject line, same words. "Final warning. Permit will be revoked on Wednesday." Glenn stared at the duplicate message. "She's not hinting anymore," he said. "That's a straight deadline." Wednesday had felt like a date on the calendar earlier. Standing there with the letters and the budget on the screen, it felt a lot closer. The clubhouse always felt smaller when Karen was in it. Fluorescent tubes buzzed overhead, washing the bulletin board and folding chairs in flat light. The faint smell of chlorine drifted in from the pool, mixing with burnt coffee from the corner table. Emily and I stepped inside, and the low murmur of voices bent around us. Karen Little stood near the bulletin board, flanked by 2 neighbors. She was in a crisp blazer name tag pinned straight HOA binder tucked against her side like a shield. As we walked in, one of the neighbors glanced from her to us and then quickly looked away. Karen didn't. "Mike," she said, voice smooth and public. "Emily. Glad you could make it." Her eyes flicked toward Emily's badge still clipped to her scrub top. Busy schedule and all. On the bulletin board behind her, a fresh poster was pinned straight and level. Security Partnership Trusted Vendors. Keeping Cedar Ridge. Safe. At the bottom in smaller print, the name of the contractor. The same vendor Emily had stared at in the budget line yesterday. Security and maintenance $68K. Emily noticed it too. I felt her shoulder tighten next to mine. Karen stepped away from the neighbors and approached, smile never quite reaching her eyes. "We can skip the sign-in," she said. "This won't take long." "I'd prefer it on the record," Emily replied. Karen held the smile a second longer, then let it cool. "Of course," she said. "Everything we do here is on the record." She set her binder on a table, flipped it open, and pulled out a single-page form. The paper had the HOA logo at the top and dense text in the middle. Compliance Agreement, Parking Privileges. Karen tapped the signature line with a manicured finger. "This will clear up the review and keep your permit in good standing," she said. "You sign, we consider the matter resolved." "What exactly are we agreeing to?" I asked. She turned the paper so it faced us. "By signing, resident acknowledges Cedar Ridge HOA's authority to review, suspend, or revoke parking privileges tied to this address for any non-compliance with community standards as determined by the board." Emily ran her eyes down the rest. "No specific violation. No mention of what we'd supposedly done wrong. There's no reason listed," Emily said. "No dates, no cited infraction. Just non-compliance." Karen shrugged lightly. "We keep it flexible," she said. Easier than printing a new form every time someone forgets the bylaws. Emily glanced at me, then back at Karen. We haven't forgotten the bylaws, she said. We pay our dues. Our cans are behind the line. Our fence was approved. And we appreciate that, Karen said. Which is why this is a courtesy. I'd hate to see your permit revoked over a simple misunderstanding. On the wall behind her, the security poster smiled down on us, the vendor logo, a neat block of color, under the words, Trusted Partnership. Emily's gaze drifted back to it. Speaking of misunderstandings, she said, I noticed your security and maintenance line jumped from $28,000 to $68,000 this year. Karen's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Budget is not tonight's topic. It feels related, Emily said. We started getting letters right after I asked for documentation. $40,000 doesn't just appear. Karen's smile returned thin this time. Budget is handled by the Finance Committee, she said. If you have questions, you can email the board. Parking privileges, however, fall under my purview. Parking is tied to the budget, Emily replied. You're using the permit to keep people from asking about those numbers. Karen took a slow breath, then leaned just slightly closer. Emily, she said, voice dropping a half step. Parking is a privilege, not a right, especially when residents create extra work for the board. That extra work is called oversight, Emily said. Across the room, I saw Glenn by the doorway, arms folded, watching. He gave the smallest shake of his head, not telling us to stop, just reminding me we weren't alone. Karen straightened and pushed the compliance agreement across the table with one finger. Sign this, she said calmly, and your permit stays exactly where it is. No more letters, no more deadlines. And if we don't, I asked. Her eyes flicked to mine, cool and polite. Then the review proceeds, she said. You'll receive notice. Your wife's permit will be suspended until the board is satisfied with your cooperation. There it was. No more hinting. Emily kept her hands at her sides. Why does a trusted vendor need $40,000 extra this year? She asked, nodding toward the poster. Same hours, same scope, same patrols. Karen turned her head just enough to glance at the poster. Again, she said, budget is not tonight's topic, and I won't debate line items in a hallway. She closed the binder with a quiet snap. You have until Wednesday, she said. After that, the system updates automatically. Emily's jaw tightened. We're not signing away our right to ask questions. Karen smiled one more time, this one thin as paper. Suit yourself, she said. Just remember, parking reviews can escalate quickly when residents decide to be difficult. She lifted the binder, nodded once to Glenn without really looking at him, and walked toward the office door, heels clicking on the clubhouse tile. The conversation ended there officially. It didn't feel finished. On the way home, neither of us spoke. The pool smell clung to my clothes. The fluorescent light stuck in my head. Back at the house, Emily went straight to the dining table and opened her laptop. The HOA portal loaded, then froze, then loaded again. She navigated not to our account, but to an archived tab she'd quietly bookmarked from her audit. Vendor registry, she said. If they thought clearing the dashboard would erase this, they're wrong. She pulled up an old cached page gray header, outdated font showing the vendor's full name, address, and tax ID. Same EIN, she said. Same entity. No new services listed. Just more money flowing out. I watched the cursor hover over the numbers. She's using the permit to keep people quiet, Emily said. If you raise your hand about the budget, your car gets a letter. I didn't argue. I'd already watched it happen, one envelope at a time. The next morning, when I stepped out with my coffee, the sunlight hit something new on Emily's windshield. A fresh sticker, bright yellow, centered over the green hospital permit. Suspension pending. Friday. As I stood there staring at it, Karen walked past on the sidewalk, joggers and leggings instead of the blazer, earbuds in, but no music playing. She slowed just enough to glance at the sticker, then at me. Tell your wife not to dig where she shouldn't, she said quietly. Some holes don't need light. Then she kept walking as if she'd just commented on the weather. The sticker didn't flap in the breeze. It just sat there, loud and silent at the same time. The binder. Emily dropped on the kitchen table didn't sound like much, just a flat thud on old wood, but it changed how I looked at our whole neighborhood. The cover was plain black. No label, no logo. She opened it so the title page faced me. Cedar Ridge, HOA, Full Budget Audit. Fiscal Year 2023. I stared at the header, then at her. "You audited Cedar Ridge," I said. She wrapped both hands around her coffee mug. "Last year," she said, "before any of this. Karen doesn't know I'm the one who audited their entire budget. All of it I asked. Every line Emily said. Reserves, landscaping, trash, legal security." I signed the preliminary report and sent it to the management company. The board saw the numbers, not my name. A car rolled past outside. I glanced through the window. White SUV, magnetic logo on the door. Cedar Ridge Security Partners. It crept slower than most cars on our street, like it was reading house numbers instead of driving by. "They've been circling since 6, Emily said. "You can see the passes on the camera log." The patrol car turned the corner and disappeared. On the table, Emily flipped to a tab marked Security and Maintenance. Yellow highlights marked certain entries. Last year, she said, tapping the paper, Vendor A Patrol Services. $28,000 total. Same company on the clubhouse poster. She woke her laptop and pulled up the current budget PDF. "Count it this year," she said. I leaned in. The line glowed in blue. Security and Maintenance. $68,000. "Same vendor?" I asked. She nodded. Same vendor name, same contact, same scope, and when I dug deeper, something else. She switched to an old cached vendor sheet she'd saved during the audit. It listed Vendor A, Vendor B, Vendor C, each with addresses and tax IDs. "Look at the EIN," she said. "Vendor A's 9 digits. Vendor B's, the same. Vendor C's, the same again. They cloned themselves," I said. "No," Emily replied. "Somebody split one vendor into 3 partners on paper and routed 3 payments to the same number. It doesn't prove fraud, but it begs a lot of questions." She clicked the file info icon. A small box popped up. Modified, 2:14 a.m. "Management company upload," she said. The security line was edited in the middle of the night. Same window we got that first permit letter. My anger had been a slow boil. Seeing 2:14 a.m. in black and white turned the heat up. "So they padded security," I said. "And now, anybody who asks why gets parking pressure." "Looks that way," she said, "but asking questions isn't illegal. Using permit reviews to punish people for asking might be." Her inbox chimed. A new email slid to the top. From Cedar Ridge. HOA. Subject: Suspension effective. Friday, 5 p.m. Emily opened it. "Due to failure to sign the provided compliance agreement, parking privileges associated with your residence will be suspended effective. Friday, 5:00 p.m. Until such time as the board confirms compliance. No violation listed, no incident. Just suspended in all caps like a stamp across our week. They're not even pretending it's about behavior now," I said. "It's about control." "Then we stop acting like this is only about our driveway," Emily said. She pulled a legal pad closer and wrote a title at the top. Irregular Items Summary. Security and Maintenance. Increase $28K, $68K. Vendor ABC. Duplicate EIN. No new scope. Late night modification. 2:14 a.m. Glenn said people who ask about the budget get permit letters first, she said. We're not the first ones she's leaned on. We might just be the first who have the paperwork to prove it. She turned a page and kept going, miscellaneous consulting fees with no description, administrative adjustments that rounded upward, special projects that never showed up on any agenda. Every time she hit a suspicious line, she ticked a small square in the margin. "This is still inside the HOA, right?" I asked. "No one outside's seen this." "Not yet," she said. "But once I send it, they don't get to pretend it doesn't exist." She opened a new email and typed the subject. Questions regarding Cedar Ridge. HOA, budget attached. In the To field, she entered the management company. In CC, she added every board address on file. After a beat, she added one more K-little at cedarridgeoodeor.org. In the body, she kept it dry. As a resident and as the prior independent auditor who reviewed the Cedar Ridge HOA financials for FY 2023, I have several questions regarding recent changes in the security and maintenance line and related vendor entries. Please see attached summary for details and supporting timestamps. Emily attached the PDF she'd just built, Irregular Items Summary, then scrolled once more through the bullet points. "You're sure you want Karen to see you wrote this?" I asked. "She already made my permit her leverage," Emily said. "It's time she knows who she's really leaning on." Her finger hovered over the mouse. "Once you hit send, I said there's no pulling it back. That's the point," she replied. She clicked. The message whooshed out of the outbox and vanished. That Emily said softly, "is the most legal trouble I've started before breakfast." An auto-reply dinged almost instantly. "Your message has been received. Please note, permit review required. Failure to sign may result in suspension." Emily read it once, then closed the laptop halfway. "Fine," she said. "If they want a review, we'll bring the whole budget with us." The clubhouse had never been this full. Folding chairs lined the walls, an extra row pressed near the bulletin board. The low hum of the ceiling mic blended with the shuffle of jackets and whispered conversations. As Emily and I stepped in, heads turned dozens of them. Someone muttered, not even quietly, "That's her, the auditor." Emily kept walking, binder tucked under her arm, face steady. Karen Little stood at the front table, posture tall, chin lifted just enough to look in control. A neat stack of compliance agreement forms sat beside her, clipped at the corner. More than a dozen. She tapped the mic. "Good evening. Tonight's hearing," she said, "is strictly about parking compliance. We will not be addressing unrelated matters." Her eyes landed on us for a beat too long. Glenn stood near the back wall, arms folded, watching the room rather than the front table. When Emily caught his eye, he gave her a single nod, steady, deliberate. Karen continued. "The purpose of this session is to determine whether residents remain in good standing regarding parking privileges," which Emily stepped forward and placed the black audit binder on the table in front of Karen. The mic picked up the soft thump. Heads turned again. "Before we begin," Emily said, "I have information relevant to why our permit was targeted in the first place." Karen's smile frosted over. "Emily," she said, "as I stated, tonight is about parking compliance, not bookkeeping." Emily didn't sit. She opened the binder to the Security and Maintenance tab and set beside it the current year budget printout. "This is last year's audit," she said, "which I conducted. And this," she tapped the newer sheet, "is this year's version after a $40,000 jump in security spending." There was a stir in the room, chairs shifting, someone clearing their throat. Karen leaned toward the mic. "Budget discussions happen at budget meetings. This is a parking review. Please take your seat." Emily didn't move. "Vendor A, Vendor B, Vendor C," she said, projecting her voice enough to carry without the mic. "All three listed separately this year. All three paid through the same EIN." A homeowner in the second row frowned. "All three?" he asked. "The same number," Emily said, flipping the sheets and holding them up. "Same vendor disguised as three. No new scope, no new hours. Just three payments routed to one entity." Karen quickly interjected. "Those were preliminary drafts." Emily turned a page so the room could see the timestamp. "Drafts don't get uploaded at 2:14 a.m., she said, "but that's when this file was modified. Same early morning window our permit letter appeared." A murmur grew, one that Karen tried to talk over. "Everyone? Please," she said, tapping the mic harder this time, "we are not discussing audit materials." "This is not," Glenn stepped forward from the back. "If the board's been sending letters to people who ask budget questions," he said, "seems related to parking to me." Several homeowners nodded. Someone whispered, "Duffy warned us." Another said, "Did my nephew get one of these letters because of the landscaping invoices?" Karen straightened, flipping the compliance agreement stack so they formed a neat rectangle. Parking, she repeated sharply, is a privilege granted by the board. When residents become disruptive. Disruptive? How? Emily asked. By asking why one vendor is pretending to be three, Karen's face tightened. You're misunderstanding the documents. So explain them, someone said from the left side of the room. Karen blinked just once, but the room saw it. The murmuring swelled again, louder now, more pointed. Someone near the door said, "She's dodging." Emily slid the last sheet across the table. Irregular items summary. These are the inconsistencies, she said. If the board can clarify them tonight, we'll listen. Karen didn't touch the paper. Meeting over, she said abruptly, "This session is adjourned." The words landed like a dropped gavel. She reached to disconnect the mic. But homeowners stood. Two men stepped away from the bulletin board and positioned themselves near the door, not blocking it physically, just standing there, folding chairs pushed aside. One of them said loudly enough for the room and the mic, "If she ends it now, she's hiding the numbers." The room froze. Not dangerous, not chaotic. Just still in a way that said people weren't leaving. Karen's hand hovered over the mic switch, eyes darting between the homeowners, the binder, and Emily. For the first time, Karen looked unsure which direction to turn, and that uncertainty filled the air like static. The room didn't empty when Karen said, "Meeting over." If anything, it got denser. The air felt thicker. The projector in the corner hummed to life with a low, aimless whir, its lens throwing a pale square onto the wrinkled screen. Karen's hand was still on the mic switch when Glenn stepped forward from the back row. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. The room had already turned toward him. Before everyone leaves, he said, "I've got something the board forgot to mention." He carried a small silver USB drive between two fingers like it might burn him if he gripped it too tight. His eyes flicked to Emily, then to me, then landed on Karen. "Karen, he said you didn't erase everything." Somebody near the door gave a low whistle. "These," Glenn continued, "are last year's full audit files, not the pretty PDFs from the portal. The working set, every revision, every timestamp." Karen's shoulders stiffened. It was subtle, but the front row saw it. That she said quickly is not an officially sanctioned. Glenn didn't answer her. He turned instead to the man sitting 2 chairs from the aisle, the one in a county badge on his belt and a plain button-down instead of neighborhood casual. "Mr. Haynes." "Glenn said you still have that laptop," the county rep. Haynes stood up slowly, the metal of his chair scraping softly against the clubhouse tile. "Brought it, just in case," he said. Karen's head snapped toward him. "You told me you were here as an observer," she said. "I am," he replied. "Observer for the county's HOA Oversight Unit." The room reacted in a single, quiet intake of breath. He stepped to the front table, opened his laptop, and plugged in Glenn's drive. The projector picked up the connection with a soft chime. The blank rectangle on the screen flickered, then filled with a folder list. FY2 to 23, Audit, full. Emily's hand tightened around the back of the chair in front of us. "That's my archive name," she whispered. Haynes clicked it open. Subfolders filled the screen. Security Vendors General Ledger Correspondence. He hovered over one titled Security. "Emily," he said, glancing her way, "mind walking us through what you flagged?" Karen leaned toward the mic. "This is completely inappropriate," she said. "These files are property of the association Haynes finished, which exists under county filings, and which has had multiple complaints in the last 6 months. He looked out at the room. "Tonight," he said, "I've already heard 3 separate references to permit letters following budget questions. So, let's stay on topic, how parking enforcement appears to connect to your finances." Emily stepped toward the screen binder still in hand. Karen slid the stack of compliance agreement forms closer to herself like they might shield her from the light. On the screen, rows of entries appeared. Dates, vendor codes, amounts. Emily pointed with the binder's spine. Last fiscal year, she said security and maintenance totaled $28,000. Vendor A provided nightly patrols. One vendor, one EIN. Haynes clicked a tab. The projector refreshed. The current budget appeared next to the old one in a split-window view. This year, Emily continued security and maintenance shows $68,000. Vendor A, vendor C, all partners. She tapped each entry as it highlighted. The EIN column, she said, shows the same 9 digits 3 times. On the back end, that's one bank account. A homeowner in the third row raised his hand like he was back in a classroom. "So we're paying one company as if it's 3, he asked. "That's what the files suggest," Emily said. "Same patrol routes, no additional services listed in the scopes." Karen tried again. "Those documents are preliminary," she said. "Drafts. They don't represent." Emily didn't look at her. "Drafts don't show as final in the audit system," she said. "And they don't get modified at 2:14 in the morning." She nodded at the corner of the projection where a small info box showed modified 02:14 a.m. User board admin. Haynes whistled under his breath. "Middle of the night is an odd time to rewrite a security budget," he said. Someone in the back said, "That's when our letter showed up." Another voice added, "Mine too." The murmurs weren't just frustration now, they were connecting dots out loud. Haynes clicked into a subfolder marked Correspondence. A list of email archives filled the screen. Emily pointed to one labeled Permit Review Notices. "That's the timing piece," she said. "Look at when the first review emails went out." He opened it. A series of subject lines appeared: RE, Parking Permit Review, Lot 12, RE, Parking Permit Review, Ridgeway, RE, Parking Permit Review, Lot 17, timestamps ran down the side. "Sent within 48 hours of added security charges," Emily said. Each to a homeowner who had recently asked for invoices or vendor details. Karen's voice, when it came, had lost the smooth edge. "You're making assumptions," she said. "This is a smear campaign based on partial data. The board has discretion, and the county has jurisdiction," Haynes said calmly. He closed the email window and turned off the projector for a moment. The room dimmed, then brightened again as the ceiling lights took over. Without the screen, all eyes landed on the table. "We've received 3 formal complaints in the last quarter," he said. 2 about unexplained security fees. 1 about targeted permit letters. Tonight, I've now seen internal files that your residents were told do not exist." He looked at Karen. "On Monday, he said you will deliver the full financials, ledgers, bank statements, vendor contracts for the last 2 fiscal years to our office downtown. Hard copies and digital. No drafts missing, no gaps." "That's overreach," Karen snapped. "You don't have the authority to—" Haynes raised a hand not to silence her like a judge, but like a man refusing to argue in circles. "The county doesn't decide guilt here," he said. "We decide whether your association is operating within the law. Right now, the optics are bad. Very bad." He turned to Emily. "Your summary helped connect the dots," he said. "Most people only complain. You brought receipts." A low ripple of approval moved through the chairs. Glenn's voice carried over it. "Told you the numbers wouldn't stay buried," he said. Karen stared at the table lips pressed tight. Haynes took a breath and looked at the yellow sticker projected in everyone's mind, if not on the screen. "The immediate concern," he said, "is retaliation. When financial questions trigger enforcement actions, that's a problem." He stepped away from the table and nodded toward the side doors. "Which car is yours?" he asked Emily. She hesitated. "The white Honda," she said. "Lot 17. "Show me," he said. The whole room didn't follow, but enough people did that the clubhouse suddenly felt lighter. We stepped outside into the cool air. The projector's hum faded behind us, replaced by the quieter sound of people talking in clusters. At the curb, Emily's Honda sat under the street lamp. The green hospital permit hung in its usual spot. The yellow suspension pending sticker was still plastered across it like a warning label. Haynes studied it for a second. This was issued before any due process, he said. No specific violation cited, just pending. Emily folded her arms. "They wanted me quiet," she said, "about the budget." Haynes peeled up one corner of the sticker, then slowly pulled it free. The adhesive gave with a soft, tacky sound. This, he said, holding it between his fingers, is under review now, not your permit. He folded the sticker once, then tucked it into his notebook. The county will treat any further permit action tied to your questions as potential retaliation, he said. Until we finish our review, your parking stays. Emily stared at the clear patch of glass where the sticker had been. For the first time since the first envelope, her shoulders dropped a fraction. I looked at her then, at the small crowd watching from the sidewalk. Glenn caught my eye and gave a short, satisfied nod. In that quiet moment under the street lamp, one thought cut through the noise in my head. Finally, someone fought back. By the time the sun cleared the pecan trees, the bulletin board at the clubhouse looked like it belonged to a different neighborhood. Somebody had pinned a fresh notice, dead center edges taped straight. County Oversight Temporary Control. Effective immediately. Cedar Ridge HOA operations will be supervised by the County HOA Oversight Unit pending financial review. Below it, in smaller print, 3 lines. Board voting session, 3:30 p.m. Open to residents. Agenda interim measures independent audit. Vendor contracts. Parking enforcement, frozen until review complete. I read it twice just to make sure it was real. Glenn stood beside me, hands folded over his belt buckle, eyes narrowed at the word oversight. Well, he said that's one word Karen never wanted on our board. I glanced around the clubhouse yard. Folding tables had been dragged out under the shade near the pool. A couple of lawn chairs faced the water. Kids' laughter floated from the shallow end, but quieter than usual, as if the adults had told them to keep it down. Emily joined us, her hair pulled back, binder tucked under her arm out of habit more than necessity now. She read the notice lips moving silently over each line. County. Temporary control, she said. They didn't waste time. Glenn nodded toward the picnic tables. If the board votes today, he said everything changes. Or doesn't, I said. He gave me a look. You didn't drag that audit into the light just to see nothing happen, he replied. Stick around. By 3, most of the chairs around the tables were full. The board members sat in a row minus Karen. Her usual seat at the center was empty nameplate turned upside down like someone didn't know what else to do with it. At the head of the table, Haynes from the county adjusted his reading glasses and cleared his throat. Thank you all for coming, he said. We're going to keep this focused. The county is not here to run your neighborhood. We're here to make sure your association follows the law while you decide how to fix what's broken. He held up a single sheet of paper. Today's agenda has 3 items. He read them off. First, approval of an independent third-party audit of all HOA finances for the last 2 fiscal years. Second, a one-time $40 account credit to every household reflecting overcharges identified in the preliminary security and maintenance review. Third, immediate suspension of all contracts with the vendor currently listed as A, B, and C, pending verification of services. No further payments are to be issued until the independent audit is complete. There was a rustle of surprised satisfaction around the tables. $40 each, someone said behind me. That's not nothing. The board secretary, a worn-looking woman who'd spent years at Karen's elbow, lifted her pen. We need motions, she said. A board member at the far end, Mr. Cruz, a quiet man who rarely spoke at past meetings, raised his hand. I move. We approve the independent audit, he said. Seconded. Voted. All hands went up. 100% in favor, Haynes said. Motion passes. Emily's grip tightened on my arm. They're actually doing it, she whispered. The secretary read the second item. $40 credit to each household, she said. Motion, a man in a polo raised his hand. It's a start, he said. I moved to approve. Second came from 3 different directions. Hands went up again. No one opposed. Even the board members who had always nodded along with Karen looked relieved to be voting for something that wasn't hers. And the vendor suspension, Haynes said. This one matters. The room quieted. The board members exchanged glances. Glenn leaned closer to me. This is where we see if they've still got a spine, he muttered. The treasurer, a thin man with the deep grooves beside his mouth, finally spoke. We can't justify paying a vendor with 3 faces and 1 number, he said. I move. We suspend all payments to them until the independent audit is complete and the county clears it. Second, the secretary said quickly. The vote was slower this time, hands rising one by one, but in the end, they all did. All in favor, Haynes announced. Motion passes. The words settled in the Texas air like a long-awaited breeze. The board moved on to logistics letters to send dates to Mark, but for most of the homeowners, the meeting was already over. The big pieces had shifted. As the chairs scraped back and people dispersed toward the pool fence and parking lot, a man in a faded cowboy's cap approached. "You're Emily, right?" he asked. She turned. "Yes." He held out a hand. "Name's Norris," he said. "Lot 9. I'm sorry. I saw the sticker on your car, heard Karen's side first. Figured you were making trouble." Emily shook his hand. "We were," she said. "Just not the kind she meant." His laugh was short but sincere. "Well," he said, "I'm glad somebody did." A woman from Ridgeway came next. "Karen told my mom you were stirring things up for your own benefit," she said. "Turns out you were protecting all of us. I'm sorry I didn't ask for your side sooner." Emily took a breath. "You're asking now," she said. "That's what matters. We heard versions of that for the next 20 minutes. Quick apologies. Awkward thank yous. A few pats on my shoulder like I'd swung a hammer instead of watched my wife swing documents. By the time we made it back to our house, the sun had dipped low enough to turn the street gold. A small stack of mail waited in the box. On top sat an envelope with the county seal. I handed it to Emily. She opened it right there at the curb. "Dear Mrs. Miller," she read aloud, "this letter confirms that any prior suspension notice on your vehicle's parking permit is void, pending the completion of our review." Her eyes flicked down. "Additionally, any future enforcement action tied to your financial inquiries is prohibited under interim order." She folded the letter once neat and slow. "That's the first time anyone in an office has told me they can't punish me for doing my job," she said. Back in the driveway, the Honda sat where it always did. The yellow sticker was gone thanks to Haynes, but a faint outline of adhesive still clung to the glass like a ghost of what had been there. Emily walked to the windshield and pressed her thumb against the edge of the residue. It lifted in a thin, cloudy strip. "One more layer," she said. She worked along the edge, peeling up the last of the tacky film. It came away in stringy curls, leaving the glass clear. The green hospital permit hung untouched behind it, simple and ordinary again. Micro-climax or not, it felt bigger than it looked. "That's it," I said. "That's it," she echoed. Behind us, gravel crunched. Glenn walked up carrying something tucked under his arm, a board of sanded oak about 2 feet long. "Figured tonight was as good a time as any," he said. He turned it around so we could see the front. The letters were burned deep into the grain, dark against the pale wood. "Transparency first." He held it out. "This neighborhood forgot it for a while," he said. "You two reminded us." Emily traced a finger over the carved letters. "You didn't have to make this," she said. "I did," Glenn replied. "Because the next board needs to see it every time they think nobody's watching." We mounted it on the post by our front walk beneath the house number where anyone walking up would have to look at it. As the evening breeze came down the street, the new sign didn't move. It just stood there, plain and readable, like a promise the neighborhood was making to itself. For the first time in a long time, Cedar Ridge felt like it was waking up. The white envelope on our porch swing didn't look like much. No seal, no logo, just my last name in block letters and Emily's in smaller script underneath. Emily picked it up thumb, running across the flap like she was checking for bad news out of habit. "Another notice?" I asked. She shook her head. "No county seal." She opened it anyway. Inside was a single sheet, thick enough to feel deliberate. No letterhead, just 3 words centered in plain black type. "Thank you, community," she read. She read it twice, then passed it to me. On the back, in blue pen, someone had added a line, "For reminding us the budget is ours, not hers." Across the cul-de-sac, Karen's old place sat with its curtains drawn. A paper notice was taped to her door at eye level. "Temporary suspension board review." Somebody had underlined board twice. Not county, board. Emily followed my gaze. She thought she owned the whole street, she said. Now the board's reviewing her. The Honda waited in the driveway windshield clear where the sticker had once clung. The hospital permit still hung on the mirror, the plastic smoothed back into its normal life. Emily went to the small box on the porch shelf and took out the new parking tag the county had sent. Same green color, same hospital logo, but a fresh laminate uncreased. They didn't have to send a brand new one, she said. No, I answered. They wanted it on record. We walked to the car together. Emily opened the passenger door, slid into the seat, and reached up to the mirror. Crooked always bothered me, she said. She peeled off the old plastic hook, laid the new permit over it, and aligned the edges like she was setting a blueprint. When she let go, it hung perfectly straight. On the sidewalk, footsteps approached. Mr. Norris from Lot 9 walked by with his dog leash loose in his hand. He slowed when he saw the permit. Looks different without that yellow thing on it, he said. Feels different, Emily replied. He nodded, once eyes on the tag. You know, he said folks down by the pool were talking. Uh-oh, I said. He ignored the joke. They said for years Karen counted on people being too busy or too tired to chase the paper trail. He looked at Emily. This time, the paper chased her. Finally, someone fought back. Emily smiled, small but real. We just brought the audit room out to the parking lot, she said. Well, he answered, giving the leash a gentle tug. Maybe that's what this neighborhood needed. When he'd gone on, Emily closed the car door and leaned against the fender binder still under her arm. You done carrying that thing around? I asked. Almost, she said. One more trip. We drove back to the clubhouse just before sunset. Inside, the boardroom door stood open. A stack of folders sat on the conference table labeled with fresh sticky notes. Emily set her black binder on top of the pile, not like a weapon this time, but like a tool she was leaving for someone else. From her pocket, she pulled a yellow Post-it and stuck it to the front. Use transparently. She capped her pen, then stepped back. That's it, I asked. That's it, she said. We don't need to guard it anymore. They do. She laughed once under her breath. Funny, she said. Karen thought she could squeeze a permit, not knowing she'd squeeze the auditor who reviewed her whole budget. On the way home, the streetlights blinked on one by one. The air smelled like cut grass and somebody's late barbecue. Back on our porch, we sat for a minute in the fading light watching small, ordinary things happen. The mail truck rattling past a kid on a bike, weaving circles. Glenn walking up the block with his hands in his vest pockets. He lifted 2 fingers in a quiet salute when he passed our house, eyes lingering for a second on the Transparency First sign by our walk. He'll keep them honest, I said. He'll remind them, Emily replied. The rest is up to them. The porch camera clicked as its night mode kicked in a soft mechanical blink we'd grown used to hearing. Its tiny red indicator reflected in the windshield down below. On the screen inside, if you watched, you'd see the new permit hanging still and straight in the mirror, catching the last streak of sunset in its glossy surface. No stickers, no warnings, just a simple green square against a quiet Texas evening. The paper storm had blown through. What it left behind for once was peace. The new permit caught the last light like a clean seal, reminding me how fast a neighborhood can change when people finally look up from their routines. After the hearing and the posted order on Karen's door, it was clear that transparency wasn't dramatic, it was just necessary. Watching Emily hand the binder back felt like the first quiet step toward rebuilding trust proof that due process can steady a shaken block. In the end, justice didn't need to shout. It simply held its ground. Finally, someone fought back. Share your HOA story below your map might help someone redraw theirs.